The anime starts off with a few people shocked to find a huge iceberg in the snowy biome. After spotting a lady encased inside the iceberg, their leader tells the whole team to contact the arcane court. But suddenly they hear a mysterious voice coming from inside the iceberg. This lady claimed herself to be a former god, who had overslept thousands of years ago, which resulted in her being stuck inside the iceberg. She then demands the people to bring her the best player of this era. The scene then shifts to a reporter on a helicopter, where he's overseeing various types of games that are being held at the moment. Everyone around the world are watching the gods' games. We are then introduced to our main character, Faye, a handsome boy with glasses as he carries his suitcase around the city. Everyone is watching the gods' games, and this time there are 3 being held at once, which is quite unusual. Although there are a lot of players attending the game, the number of winners are very scarce. Faye then enters a building where everyone is shocked to see him. The girl from Overflow then greets Faye while stating that it had been 6 months since he was last spotted. Turns out Faye had been absent for 6 whole months because he was searching for a specific person who taught him how to play games when he was younger. Mrs. Overflow then invites Faye to the 17th floor to discuss an important matter. In the elevator, Mrs. Overflow told Faye that there was someone that she'd like him to meet. Apparently, the girl she was referring to was the red-haired former god who was previously encased in the iceberg. Years ago, the former god was playing tag with some humans. She then proceeded to hide under the seafloor where she fell asleep for thousands of years, causing her to be stuck inside an iceberg. Luckily, our main character here is the best player of this era. Mrs. Overflow then tells Faye to watch over the former god as he was the perfect person for this job. Mrs. Overflow then explains that in the past, spiritual beings known as gods have descended to Earth, and to this date, the reason for their descent is still unknown. Mrs. Overflow wants Faye to figure out why this god is still on this Earth, as he possesses the power to not die. Upon entering the room, it is clear that this god really loves to play games. Faye spots a dice and rolls the dice while predicting its outcome even before it reaches the ground. This amazes Mrs. Overflow, who thought it was a lucky coincidence. Suddenly, God comes out of her room. But upon seeing her, Faye was instantly reminded of the person he was looking for. Mrs. Overflow then introduces Faye to the god Leolisha. She mentions that Faye was the first player to reach 3 wins in the gods' games, a feat never done before, which makes him the best player of this era. She then mentions that Faye will be assigned as her supervisor from now on. However, Faye is still in awe as the god in front of him is a perfect replica of the person who taught him when he was little. Mrs. Overflow then snaps him out of his daydream and leaves him in charge of supervising Leolisha. As Faye was about to introduce himself, Leolisha flies towards Faye, which startles him. Leolisha then proposes to play a game in order to introduce themselves. The name of the game is Self-Intro Memory, and it is a memory game where you match 2 of the same cards before being able to ask a question. Each card has a question on it, and when you match 2 of the same cards, your opponent has to answer the question truthfully. Leolisha then shuffles the deck of cards, but Faye points out that she needs to reshuffle the whole deck as he's able to memorize the whole deck's position. This shocks the god as Faye was able to memorize the location of the cards very quickly. She praises Faye for not wanting an advantage even when facing a god. Leolisha then adds a twist to the game and she floats the whole deck of cards in different orbits and speeds. This will cause the card's location to constantly change, making memorizing it impossible. In another room, it turns out that Mrs. Overflow is secretly monitoring the 2 through a hidden camera placed in the room. The game then starts with Faye making the first move. He picked 2 cards, but both of the topics didn't match, making it Leolisha's turn. She bends over to focus on the cards more, but upon seeing this posture, Faye tells her to stop since this posture is a bit dangerous. She then leaps onto a chair and begins to choose her cards, but fails to match the cards either. After a few turns, Faye was the first one to match 2 cards. The cards he got was Hometown, and he proceeded to ask Leolisha about her whereabouts. Leolisha then explains that most gods are from the same place called the Elements. It is also the place where the gods' games are held and humans can only enter using a special door. Mrs. Overflow then explains that the gods' games appeared because the gods were bored. They handpicked a select few of humans and gave them prizes which made them gain superhuman strength or magic powers that made them eligible to challenge the gods. However, those powers can only be used in the elements, and as a reward for winning a game, they'll be able to use a part of their powers in the real world. Players will lose their arises if they lose 3 games and will complete the gods' games if they win 10 games. Players who win a total of 10 games will be given a special celebration by the gods, which is still unknown to this day. The game then continues where Leolisha matches the 2 named cards and Faye introduces himself. After a few rounds, Faye realizes something. Turns out there is a deeper meaning to this game, as there was a wild card which enabled them to ask any question they could think of. Seconds later, Leolisha matches the 2 blank cards which were indeed the wild card mentioned before. She then asked Faye's true intentions on wanting to get closer to her, remembering the rules to this game where every question must be answered truthfully. Faye told her everything they had planned and her true motives behind everything. Turns out, Leolisha had already seen through everything and she just wanted to test Faye. She told him that she liked him from the very start and that she'd trust him. She then tells Faye to call her Leshy from now on, indicating the beginning of their relationship. But before ending the game, Leshy then asked Faye on what he would have asked if he had gotten the wild card. Faye revealed that he wanted to ask why Leshy stayed on Earth and why she specifically chose him to be her supervisor. It's all because Faye was the only rookie who had gotten 3 wins in such a short period of time after his debut, which has never been done before. She then mentions that she wants to clear the gods' games with Faye as she's no longer a god herself. Turns out, Leshy came down to this realm because she wanted to play with the humans. However, the trip down here was a one-way trip, which meant she can no longer return to being a god. Her plan is to win 10 games with Faye in order to become a god again. Hearing this sparked Faye's interests as Leshy just revealed a reward for clearing the gods' games. She mentions that when a player wins 10 games, the gods will grant the players unlimited wishes. Leshy then drags Faye out of her room and brings him to the Divine Gate. They then entered the gate and challenged their first game together, Hide and God Seeks. The Titan God then caused some minor destruction in the surrounding buildings, causing debris to fall on the participants. They quickly use their abilities to shield themselves. However, Leshy is confused on why Faye isn't using his power. He then explains that his power is immortality, which isn't something that can be casted. Suddenly, a chunk of debris was going to fall on Leshy, but she effortlessly destroyed it, reminding Faye of her status as a former god. However, Leshy admitted she couldn't exert her full power, finding Faye's concern for her cute. 10 minutes ago, after passing through the portal, Faye and Leshy arrived in a place reminiscent of the city. They encountered other participants, including Asta, whom Faye greeted. Faye mentioned his recent return from his 6-month absence, surprising Asta. Leshy then introduced herself as well. Everyone was shocked by her presence, but she reassured them that she was on the human team. Suddenly, a small creature named Meep appeared, welcoming everyone. Meep explained that this is the Titan God's territory and that registration for the game is closed, resulting in 18 participants. Baldy then told his team to start the stream for the broadcast worldwide, and they were ready to begin. Miss Overflow watched the broadcast anxiously in hopes that Faye could fulfill humanity's mission by winning the gods' games. Meep then gave them instructions as Baldy reminded everyone of the Titan God's fondness for battle games. The girl then analyzed their chances in the previous games against the Titan God, realizing they had a 14% chance of winning with the current number of participants. But despite the slim odds, the group's hope remained high, especially with Leshy on their side. However, Meep delivered a twist. This time, the game wouldn't be a typical battle, but it will be a game of tag among the gods. Faye questioned the rules, thinking it was a regular game of tag within the confined area of the city. However, Meep clarified that while they couldn't leave the area illuminated by light, they could still lose without being tagged. With that, Meep concluded the explanation, gatekeeping details about the winning and losing conditions. To make matters worse, they had only 5 minutes to flee before the game started, but the Titan's impatience led it to start early. As the Titan pursued them with great speed, the participants scattered, attempting to blend into the shadows cast by the buildings. Faye and Leshy found themselves with 4 others, including Asta, and one of them suggested hiding inside the buildings for safety. Asta agreed and began moving towards a building entrance, distancing herself from the group. However, Faye stopped her, cautioning against the idea as the Titan likely knew their approximate location. Just as he spoke, the Titan appeared and headed straight for Asta, leaving her no time to flee. Asta's sudden change surprised everyone. Her body turned red and her wind magic started attacking her friends. Seeing this, Faye quickly figured out that anyone caught by the god will become his ally, a rule Meep had mentioned. Even though Asta told them to run, she couldn't control herself and accidentally tagged 3 friends. The Titan also took out one of them, making more people join his side. With only Faye and Leshy left, they tried to run as far as possible, knowing it wasn't safe anymore. The Titan went after someone else, but Asta kept chasing Faye and Leshy. He then noticed that the number of players had changed a lot, from 18 against 1 to 14 against 5. However, he noticed that only half of Asta's body turned red, meaning she wasn't totally out of the game. Faye and Leshy understood each other without speaking and made a plan on the spot. They begin by trapping Asta to stop her magic, and then Leshy touches her to bring her back to their team. Faye realized they could get their friends back, and the Titan started chasing them again. Faye then told Asta to hide, leaving only him and Leshy to escape from the Titan. As they ran, Leshy noticed how well they worked together. Faye liked the challenge, and Leshy thought it was fun to see humans fighting gods so seriously. This reminded Faye of the girl from his past who loved games just for fun. Despite finding the game exciting, Faye was determined to figure out how to win. As they ran, they found themselves surrounded by all the 15 players who had been caught, leaving only Faye, Leshy, and Asta on the human team. Seeking refuge, they dashed into a building, with Leshy destroying the connector to the neighboring building to slow down the Titan's allies. However, the Titan was still on their trail, and they needed a plan to win. Reflecting on their situation, Faye realized they needed to make all the players switch sides to win. Leshy immediately grasped what he meant, understanding the game's hidden rules, which included elements of tag, hide, and seek, and another undisclosed game. With a clear strategy in mind, they split up. Leshy would bait the players out of the building, while Faye headed to the rooftop. As they executed their plan, the Titan destroyed the surrounding buildings, intending to end the game by trapping them. And Faye was determined to finish their plan before it was too late. Upon reaching the rooftop, Faye faced the Titan's imminent approach. The Titan tagged Faye, seemingly reducing the human team even further. However, thanks to his power to avoid death, Faye remained on the same team, defying everyone's expectations. Despite the odds still stacked against them at 16 against 3, Faye informed the Titan that the game was about to change. Explaining the hidden conditions of the game, Faye likened the city to a game board, where the gods' team took control of the pieces by tabbing them. Now it was the humans' turn to play and reclaim the players for their team. Similar to the game of Reversi, where pieces are flipped, the cityscape served as the game board. As Faye elaborated, the destruction of all the buildings marked the end of the game, similar to filling the board in Reversi. The winner was determined by the side with more pieces left on the board. Further explaining the conditions, Faye revealed that when someone was tagged by the Titan and others changed teams without being tagged, it was because they were sandwiched against in a specific way that flipped their allegiance, following the rules of Reversi. Faye's ultimate goal was to distract the Titan, allowing Leshy and Asta to take action. As planned, the girls came out from hiding and Asta strategically threw 7 participants against the wall, lining them up as before. By touching 2 people, they reversed the allegiance of everyone in the rows, shifting the score to 10 humans against the Titan's team. With the last building collapsing, signaling the end of the game, the humans emerged victorious. Even the Titan god accepted the defeat gracefully. And as everyone returned to the human world, Ms. Overflow celebrated the historic victory, marking the first triumph of humanity against the gods in 35 days. This tag game garnered record viewership worldwide. Grateful for Faye's contribution to the victory, Ms. Overflow asked about his experience partnering with the former goddess. Faye expressed admiration for Leshy's impressive abilities and remarked on their remarkable synergy as a team. However, Leshy humbly attributes their success not to her former status as a goddess, but to the synergy they shared as a team. She reminds Faye that she used to play alone until they met, sparking memories of his solitary gaming days. Miss Overflow reflects on Leshy's strength even back then, but now together as a team, Faye can finally pursue his dream of completing the Gods games. She then asks about Faye's motivations for winning the game as she herself aimed to regain her goddess status. Faye then tells her that his goal is to find a person from his childhood, a mentor who taught him about games. Despite always losing, she encouraged him with a smile until one disappearing one day, leaving him longing to express his gratitude. Leshy finds Faye's wish intriguing but wonders if he has any other clues besides her love for games. Faye admits he only remembers her red hair, reminiscent of Leshy's own. As it couldn't possibly be her due to Leshy's 3,000-year entrapment in ice, she hopes Faye can find his mentor. However, Faye contemplates that meeting someone so similar to his mentor must be fate, and now, united as partners, they will strive to conquer the Gods games together. That night, Miss Overflow realizes that they needed more teammates to boost their chances in the God games. Ms. Overflow discloses that each team requires at least 10 people to increase their odds of winning. Since there's no limit to human participation, they'll only face off against one god per game. However, Leshy isn't open to teaming up with other people. Faye then uses online forums to recruit teammates while scouting for players near the registration booth. He knows a team captain named Ash and calls him to propose joining forces, citing their recent victory. Initially feeling honored, Ash agrees but changes his mind when he learns that Leshy is with Faye. He reveals Leshy's past bad reputation, stemming from an incident where she overreacted to a team mocking the Gods games, which resulted in them being in the hospital. Despite finding Leshy cute, Ash declines her inclusion due to her bad reputation, causing Leshy to feel disheartened. Disappointed but still determined, Faye seeks another team and finds one with a skilled game analyst, offering valuable strategic support. Faye reaches out to a team captain named Yuki, proposing to join their team. Initially excited, Yuki abruptly hangs up when she learns Leshy is with Faye. Confused, Faye questions Leshy about Yuki's reaction, prompting her to reveal a past incident where she accidentally injured Yuki during a practice match. Leshy insists she meant no harm and attempted to apologize, but Faye senses her unease and accuses her of lying. Leshy then recalls the incident, explaining her lack of control at the time. Despite feeling disheartened by the rejection, Leshy expresses her genuine curiosity about humans, hoping to interact with them positively. Realizing they may struggle to find vacant spots on existing teams, Faye suggests forming their own team. They set out to recruit members, prioritizing individuals with valuable skills. They then spotted a girl named Pearl who possesses teleportation abilities. This impresses Faye, and he considers inviting her to join their team. However, Pearl surprises them by expressing her desire to resign as an apostle. Leshy, however, is unwilling to let her give up so easily and proceeds to burn Pearl's resignation letter. As Pearl becomes flustered, they try to convince her that they want her on their team. Faye sweetens the deal by offering to treat her to a parfait if she listens to their proposal. Overjoyed, Pearl quickly agrees to hear them out and introduces herself, mentioning her mixed record of 1 win and 1 loss. This puzzled Faye even more since she tried to retire after just 1 loss. Faye then reaches out to Pearl, questioning her decision to retire. Turns out Pearl blames herself for her team's loss in the last game. During the game, their task was to protect the leader, but she accidentally swapped places with the team captain while being pursued, resulting in their defeat. Despite possessing the ability to teleport and swap places with others, Pearl feels that she isn't competent and believes her power isn't useful because of its limitations. Leshy tries to convince Pearl that it's okay to make mistakes and invites her to join her team, believing in a supportive environment where errors are embraced as part of the learning process. However, Pearl is determined to retire, teleporting away before they can persuade her even further. Leshy then suggests letting her go, but Faye proposes on investigating further, unwilling to let Pearl's fear decide her future. They decide to visit Pearl's dorm only to find it unlocked and empty. Initially, they thought that she had already moved out. However, Faye accidentally spots Pearl almost in her peak form, which surprises both Faye and Leshy. However, the situation takes a troubling turn as she becomes fixated on Pearl's huge missiles, prompting her to jump at Pearl in an attempt to steal it from her. Pearl then explains that she's been using portals to access her room, hence why she didn't remember to lock her door. She shares with Faye that she became an apostle last year and has always admired him, feeling not competent enough as his teammate due to his exceptional abilities. As they talk, Faye notices gifts in Pearl's room which was intended for her former teammates. Seeing this, Leshy then lectures her, asserting that games should be enjoyed and not filled with blame. Faye then encourages Pearl to seek redemption and proposes that the 3 of them join her old team for the next game, believing in her potential. Despite Pearl's hesitation, Faye urges her to give one last try, assuring her that he won't stop her from leaving after the game ends. Moved by Faye's passion and encouragement, Pearl decides to follow his advice and join her old team for the next game. As they prepare, Ms. Overflow secretly reveals that she bent the rules to make this possible, putting pressure on them to succeed and make it up to her. Despite her nerves, Faye reassures Pearl that this is her chance for redemption. Together, they enter the gate, only to find themselves falling from the sky. Suddenly, Shenlong appears before them, recognized by Faye as the undefeated god of despair, Ouroboros. Instead of fear, Faye is actually filled with excitement about challenging the god. He realizes they need a solution to survive the fall and suggests using Pearl's powers. However, Pearl's power has a limit of 30 meters. They then use Leshy's ability to slow their descent and manage to land safely. Meeting with Pearl's former group, Faye seeks information exchange. But Oven, the captain of the Inferno team, reveals that 4 apostles have already been eliminated. 3 didn't survive the initial fall, and the 4th was caught by creatures known as Leviathans, which wait for fallen humans in order to devour them. The grim reality of the game worries some participants, as losing would make them lose their apostle status. Despite the challenges, Oven motivates his team, reminding them of the global broadcast of the game. However, Faye notices a sense of giving up among the players, doubting the possibility of winning against Ouroboros. However, his excitement surges when he learns about the game's objective, which is to make Ouroboros say a certain word. As the group goes deeper into Ouroboros' massive body, they fall into a trap set by the god. The Meep then reveals that they will be trapped until they discover the forbidden word which they have already mentioned before. Despite numerous attempts, they struggle to remember every word spoken during the match. But eventually, Faye recalls the word ouch, spoken by Lei and Pearl when they fell, freeing the group from the trap. Moving to another part of Ouroboros' body, Faye notices that the god doesn't understand human language. He deduces that the condition for victory isn't to make Ouroboros literally say the forbidden word, but to evoke some form of pain. However, their attempts to inflict damage were useless. Desperate, Leshy unleashes her full goddess strength, creating a powerful gust of wind. The impact causes some participants to be swept away and eliminated by the Leviathans, causing more fear to the players. Upon witnessing the aftermath of her actions, Leshy quickly apologizes to the group. Captain Oven quickly accepts her apology as he's reminded of her status as a foreign god. However, they soon realize that their attacks didn't appear to cause any pain to Ouroboros. Just as they're grappling with this revelation, Neep suddenly remembers a forgotten secret rule, explaining that a specific action will trigger an event, allowing the second secret rule to be performed momentarily. As tension mounts, Pearl notices that the Leviathans are trailing the group, sparking fear within her. Seeking comfort, she runs to Faye, but he gently reminds her of their purpose, which was to showcase her potential to the Inferno team. Encouraging her to face her fears, Faye urges Pearl to stay strong and demonstrate her capabilities. Realizing the gravity of the situation, Pearl agrees to make an effort and promises to stay focused. Together, they search for Ouroboros' weak point and eventually find a scale on its tail that stands out from the rest. Excited by the discovery, Pearl becomes absorbed in the idea of exploiting the weak point, ignoring Faye's concerns about assuming things without proper evidence. However, Faye recognizes the need to conduct a test and instructs Pearl to attack the weak point cautiously. Pearl draws Captain Oven's attention and strikes Ouroboros' tail, causing it to light up in response. However, she fails to retreat as instructed, prompting Leshy to intervene just in time to shield them from the attacks launched by Ouroboros' tail. However, the swift counterattack eliminates several players and nearby Leviathans. Realizing the danger caused by their actions, Oven scolds Pearl for her recklessness. She tries to apologize to the group, explaining that she only wanted to be helpful. However, Faye reassures her, emphasizing that he would have punched it either way. He assures Pearl that even if he had been eliminated during the attempt, he wouldn't blame her. Faye believes that Ouroboros' tail wasn't intended to act as a trap, as a god as strong as it wouldn't be satisfied with only a few eliminations. He suggests that there must be a way to achieve victory, possibly linked to the first secret rule mentioned by Meep. But despite Oven's disagreement, Faye argues that Ouroboros could have eliminated far more participants if it had truly intended to. Leshy acknowledges the suspicious nature of the attack, noting that hundreds of lights missed their target. Oven then questions Faye's next steps, to which Faye responds that they need to uncover the second secret rule of the game. Although uncertain about its nature, Faye points out that they have the luxury of time as there's no time limit in the match. As Faye calmly analyzes the situation, Team Inferno grows increasingly impatient, thinking about forfeiting the game, which is usually allowed without penalty in matches against Ouroboros. The discussion turns tense when Oven reminds the team of the consequences of forfeiting, particularly due to Pearl's mistake in a previous game they played together 6 months ago. This causes her teammates to direct their anger towards Pearl, who feels guilty and ashamed. Leshy, angered by the group's mistreatment of Pearl, initially threatens to send them back to the real world herself, but quickly regains her composure. She clarifies that her anger stems not from their argument with Pearl, but is caused by everyone's anger directed to each other even when they're currently participating in this fun game. As tensions escalate within the group, they find it odd that Leshy seems to be enjoying the chaotic situation. However, Leshy points out that Faye is the one who's more immersed into the game. He continues to reflect on the events, especially on Pearl's activation of the first secret rule. Deciding to activate the rule again, Faye warns of potential casualties but urges the others to keep watching the match via transmission, promising a victory next time. He instructs Leshy to strike Ouroboros' tail with all her might, resulting in a massive eruption of lights that eliminates all players except Faye, Pearl, and Leshy, who shielded the other two from the counterattack. The sudden reaction of the Leviathans to Ouroboros' irritation makes Pearl question their nature, realizing that the game never specified their role. Discovering that they can use the Leviathans, Faye takes Pearl onto one while Leshy joins another. They found out that by attacking Ouroboros' tail and provoking a counterattack, they can control the Leviathans for a limited time. In this moment of revelation, Meep appears, elated that someone has finally reached the final stage of the game with the final task of making Ouroboros feel pain and say the forbidden word. Leshy recognizes the need to discover Ouroboros' true weak point, and Faye deduces that it must be on the underside of its body, as they hadn't found anything anywhere above. Eventually, they locate Ouroboros' eyes, confirming them as the true weak point. However, they encounter a defense system as they approach, with one eye launching attacks as they get close to the other. Faye notices the Leviathan's eyes blinking, signaling the end of their control of the creatures. With quick thinking, Faye whispers something to Pearl, and she prepares to act at the right moment. Leshy quickly springs into action, while Faye draws Ouroboros' attention away, allowing Leshy to strike one of its eyes, cracking it. However, the other eye counterattacks, causing Leshy to fall, though this was part of the plan. As Faye moves in to deliver the final blow, Captain Oven and his team watch the match's transmission, doubting Faye's ability to act in time. Yet moments before the other eye launches its attack, Faye orders Pearl to teleport him to safety, causing the attack to hit the other eye, which was already weakened by Leshy's earlier strike, resulting in its shattering. As Ouroboros screams in pain, cheers erupt from those watching the transmission. They realize that despite being eliminated, victory was given to the entire group. Captain Oven acknowledges that Pearl has redeemed herself in this game. As the game concludes, Ouroboros appears in her human form, acknowledging her defeat. She presents Faye with a special reward for defeating him for the first time, a fragment of her eye known as a god's crown. This crown allows its bearer to challenge Ouroboros anytime they choose to. Ouroboros also promises to make the next game 100 times more difficult and challenges the trio to participate again. The scene then shifts to a girl named Nell Reckless who awakens from a startling dream about a game. She then finds the TV still on, broadcasting Faye's victorious match against Ouroboros. Inspired by Faye's playing style, Nell decides to dedicate her life to following him. On the other hand, Leshy expresses her frustration to Miss Overflow upon learning that they won't be able to participate in their branch's games despite recruiting Pearl to join their team. Miss Overflow explains that there is a huge waiting list of players due to Faye and Leshy's unprecedented victory against Ouroboros, which inspired many apostles to participate. However, our addicted goddess is determined to not give up on participating and decides to forcefully steal the divine gate. This made Faye share his concerns with Miss Overflow about Leshy's potential troublemaking if deprived of games, which Miss Overflow agrees to and suggests that the group participate in the World Games Tour Championship instead, which led them to embark on a train trip to the city of the Sacred Springs, Malra, to compete in the championship. During the journey, Pearl reflects on retired players who used their arises to protect the city and advance the outside world. They also remember Miss Overflow's explanation that the World Games Championship invites athletes from around the globe. The defeat of Ouroboros resulted in numerous requests for Faye, Leshy, and Pearl to participate, as apostles who triumph over unbeatable gods are hailed as heroes. After the Miss Overflow explains everything to the team, Pearl uses a dart game to decide which city they should go to. She feels honored to be in charge of deciding this, and her dart ends up hitting the city of the spring's sacred source, Malra. After a long journey, the trio arrives at the location, and Leshy is excited to explore the game stores and discover which games are famous there. However, Faye reminds them that they should first visit the Malra branch. At that moment, Pearl notices a girl holding a welcome sign for Faye's team, which surprises them. They find it suspicious that she was a complete stranger, but seemed to be looking for them everywhere. When Nell notices Faye and the girls looking at her, she approaches them with great excitement, prompting the trio to flee. However, Nell's arise gives her absurd speed, allowing her to easily catch up with them. Impressed by Nell's superhuman physical strength, Faye asks whether she's an apostle. Nell then introduces herself and explains that she's a former player from the city of Malra who watched his match against Ouroboros and decided to be his follower, even willing to do anything for him. This confession embarrasses Faye even more, and he seeks support from Leshy and Pearl to get out of the situation. However, the two quickly judge him, thinking that Faye has some interest in the unknown girl. Nell begs Faye again to allow her to be his subordinate, but he takes advantage of the distraction to run away with the girls. Nell notices the trio fleeing and runs to catch up with them, forgetting to check the street before crossing. When she realizes her mistake, she sees a moving car heading straight towards her. In order to avoid being hit, she uses her power to kick the car away, successfully saving herself but putting the driver's life in danger. Worried that she may have caused an accident, Nell checks on the driver, allowing Faye and his team to reach the Malra branch without being followed. Upon arrival, Faye notices the statue of the water spirit Undyne. However, the people around quickly recognize him as the apostle who defeated Ouroboros. Suddenly, a tall man appears behind Pearl, startling her. She runs to ask for help from the local guard, thinking the man is a pervert, but he soon introduces himself as Bale, the manager of the Malra branch of the Arcane Court. Bale takes the team up the stairs of the building to his office on the 8th floor, refusing to take the elevator due to it being a healthy option. On the way, Bale explains that the main event of the World Games Championship will be in 3 days, during which the gods play. For the event, they rented the city sports stadium and sold 10,000 tickets. Bale also mentions that the next day there will be a friendly match, and he would like the three of them to participate because several players want to compete with a former goddess in Faye, known as the best rookie in recent years. Faye agrees to participate, and Pearl is swayed by the popularity of their group, thinking that she must also be becoming famous for participating in defeating Ouroboros. Later, Bale takes the trio to a room to show several photos of the previous year's World Games Championship, including those of the people who came to the city as guests at the time. Leshy notices that in one of the photos, the team wears black uniforms, and Faye remembers that that color belongs to the best team of the branch. Bale takes the opportunity to explain that the golden embroidery on the uniform indicates that it belongs to the main branch of the arcane court. At that moment, an apostle in a black uniform named Dax Gear appears and recognizes the team as visitors due to the uniform's blue embroidery. Bale notes that Dax has always wanted to meet the visitors before the games and begins to introduce Dax to the group. However, Bale quickly warns him to speak politely as he's talking to a former goddess. But Dax doesn't seem to care about it and makes it clear that he won't give them any special treatment because he's only interested in knowing if the three of them are good players or not. Leshy is happy to meet an apostle who only has eyes for games, and Pearl notices that Dax wears a black uniform. The manager then explains that he is a newcomer who joined the branch a year ago and assembled his team much faster than anyone else in the world. Besides winning against a god in his first match, he also mentions that so far Dax has won 3 games and lost 1, becoming the current representative of the Mara branch. Impressed, Pearl comments that the guy is a prodigy just like Faye, which Dax agrees, stating that the 2 players were destined to meet. He also praises Faye's victory against the Titan and Ouroboros and invites him to join his team named Tempest Cruiser. Dax explains that he is gathering talented players from around the world because he intends to form the strongest team in history and completely dominate the game of the gods, with Faye being the missing piece. However, Faye thanks him for the invitation and compliments but clarifies that he came to the city only to participate in the World Games Championship. Dax accepts his refusal and leaves, although it seems he will not give up on getting what he wants. Later, Faye talks to his team and explains that he has been thinking about what kind of game they will participate in, and in his research, he accidentally came across information about Nell. Faye reveals that Nell retired a month ago with 3 wins and 3 losses, which wasn't really a good record. But from what he saw, she was a good player because she could easily follow the captain's orders well and cared about supporting her teammates. However, in a game called God's Statue, where 3 players were needed to press a button, the group used the 4th participant as bait to attract the attention of the god. But when that participant was disqualified, they all panicked upon seeing that the god went into full surveillance, and the captain ended up surrendering without even trying to find another solution. With most giving up, Nell lost the game, even though she begged her team not to give up victories so easily, as they could very well have tried to win with just 3 players. With this game, Nell acquired 3 losses and was forced to retire. Faye comments that he was curious about the match, and Pearl observes that Nell was the opposite of her because she had a defeat due to her own mistake, and was choosing to retire of her own free will. Unlike Nell, who acquired a defeat because of her team and was forced into retirement even though she probably wanted to continue participating in the God Games. Faye agrees that Pearl may be right and regrets running away from Nell before she could explain her situation better. At that moment, the doorbell rings and Pearl goes to answer, thinking it's the manager Bale. However, upon opening the door, she discovers Nell pretending to be a room service employee. Nell tries to maintain her disguise, but everyone recognizes her by her voice and hair color. This caused her to run away before Faye could explain that he wanted to talk to her. But after stopping running, Nell herself wondered why she fled like that. Suddenly, Dax appears and says that doing something so pathetic doesn't suit her. He then continues by saying that they both entered the branch as colleagues 2 years ago, but unlike her, he survived. Dax then points out about what sets them apart, which was just simply their teammates. Despite her amazing abilities, she was unlucky with her allies and was forced to retire. The trio prepares to play, excited to participate in a championship at a venue as grand as the sports stadium. Before they go, Nell shows up to warn them about their opponents, who will be Dax's team. Even for someone like Faye, it won't be an easy match because Dax's game sense is undeniable. Nonetheless, she tells them that she'll be cheering for the 3 in the audience, and they must win no matter what. This surprises the trio as they learned that Nell came there just to tell them that she'll be cheering for them, which made them happy nonetheless. Then the team heads to the stadium where a huge crowd awaits. Dax greets them and makes it clear that he came there to be the winner and is not willing to be humiliated. Faye observes that his opponent is intense, making it clear that this is a compliment. Dax explains that his way of acting depends on his opponent, and to make it a fair match, a random game will be selected from the thousands installed at the venue. Then Dax asks the operator to start the selected game, and an augmented reality video appears, causing various data to appear throughout the stadium, much to Faye's surprise. The game displayed on the screen turns out to be Subaroku, but with a twist. It's played with cards instead of dice. As this game requires 4 players, each team must choose 2 players. Dax then introduces Kelrich Shi from his guild as their second player. He then predicts that Faye will partner with Lesha, but Faye surprises everyone by choosing Pearl instead. Leshy wishes them luck and moves to the spectator's seat to cheer for them. With that, the game begins, accompanied by the host explaining the rules. The objective is simple: reach the finish line first or eliminate opponents by depleting their life points with traps and magic cards. The game offers 4 classes: Wizard, Healer, Traveler, and Trapper. Before selecting their classes, each player receives 5 magic cards at random, divided into attack, recovery, and special cards, totaling 72 different cards to aid in victory. However, Faye receives a secret card exclusive to the Healer class, while Pearl gets a rare card usable when low on life points and cards. With a surplus of recovery cards, they base their role choices on their hands. Faye opts for Traveler class, followed by Pearl choosing the Healer class. However, the opposing team both chooses the Wizard class, emphasizing offense. In this game, there's a twist. Players are given 6 different cards to determine their movement. Additionally, there are 3 types of squares. Golden squares grant 2 magic cards, silver squares grant 1 magic card, and red squares deal 7 damage to players. However, if 2 players land on the same square, they cannot draw any cards. Faye chooses the 6th card and Pearl chooses the 4th, but since both Faye and Dax chose to land on the same square, neither can draw cards. Dax realizes that Faye is attempting to prevent him from drawing cards and proceeds with his turn. He uses the Wizard class secret card, creating a barrier that doubles damage to opponents but affects all players. Pearl then takes her turn next, drawing 1 card before ending her turn. Kelrich, however, lands on a golden square and casts an offensive spell, Twin Bolt. The spell deals 1 damage initially, but due to her Wizard class dealing an additional damage and the barrier's effect, both Faye and Pearl receive 4 damage. As their health dwindled rapidly, Pearl felt the weight of worry settling in, but Faye remained steadfast, assuring her they could endure the attacks. Courage then deployed another barrier card and concluded her turn. With the start of the second round, Pearl unleashed her signature spell, Pearl Fire, naming it after herself. However, Dax countered with his own creation, Dax Thunder, resulting in an icy attack that reduced Pearl's health to 8. Responding to Dax's assault, Kelrich unleashed another devastating magic card, further depleting Pearl's health to just 1 point. In a desperate move, Pearl activated a card that negated 9 points of damage, leveraging her class perks. But Dax swiftly nullified any recovery magic with another card, rendering Pearl's attempt futile. Faye, however, reacted swiftly, using a card to nullify the damage and counterattacking Dax with a light sword, dealing 5 damage. He then played another card, sacrificing 1 from his hand to heal them both for 3 health points. Following suit, Pearl utilized another card to heal herself once more. As the third round began, Dax's unexpected move to the red square surprised everyone, inflicting 7 damage upon himself. Pearl then continued by erecting a barrier, nullifying all magic effects around her, while Faye opted for the golden square to draw 2 cards. Kelrich, brimming with confidence, initiated her turn with a devastating Mega Flame, breaking through Pearl's barrier. Following this, she played a card forcing all players to draw until they had 4 cards each. Before concluding her turn, Kelrich cast a timed magic set to activate in the next round. Upon landing on the red square, Dax's true strategy came to light. He aimed to reverse the trap's damage onto Pearl using a specific card. Faye, however, reacted quickly and countered with his own card. But to his surprise, Dax had already anticipated this move and sealed all of Faye's movements for the round. Kelrich then unveiled her earlier casted magic, which dealt damage based on the number of cards drawn by each player, leaving Pearl at 0 health. But Pearl activated a unique card triggered when her health hit 0, granting her an additional turn, albeit with 20 damage at the end of her turn. Capitalizing on her extra turn, Pearl launched a lightning bolt at Dax, reducing him to 1 health. She followed up with another Pearl Fire, which was countered by Dax's healing card. Kelrich then intervened with her own healing card, which was then promptly countered by Pearl's card, dealing damage equal to the number of cards she had played. However, Dax had already anticipated their moves and prepared a counter. He activated a card that redirected the damage dealt to him onto Kelrich, ensuring his survival. Thinking they had emerged victorious, Dax let out a triumphant laugh. Just as the tension reached its peak, Pearl unveiled her trump card, the rare card she had mentioned earlier. With this card, she retrieved the secret card that Faye had discarded earlier in the second round. This secret card transferred the 20 damage she was supposed to receive from her last dance card back to Dax, sealing their victory in today's game. As the match concluded, Dax's laughter echoed, declaring Faye as his destined rival and marking the beginning of their intertwined fates. This declaration puzzled Faye, who found Dax's behavior erratic. Nonetheless, he praised Pearl for her incredible performance. Pearl, however, couldn't help but question the opponent's seemingly heightened excitement despite their loss. After the match, Leshy went around the city to shop for rare games, proudly flashing her platinum credit card to the shop owners, knowing it had unlimited usage. She instructed the owners to ship all the games to their office in ruin. However, Faye quickly discovered her actions and gave her a little pep talk, reminding her that the card belonged to Miss Overflow, who had specifically told them not to overuse it. Leshy listened to Faye's warning but cheekily said she would finish her spree after buying out a few more stores. Once her shopping was done, they regrouped with Pearl, who had bought a lot of food as a self-reward for their victory in the previous day's game. Suddenly, a group of girls approached Leshy asking for a picture and her autograph. Leshy, who was often avoided in their hometown due to her dangerous reputation, was surprised by the attention. Pearl also noted that if people didn't know how dangerous Leshy was, they would find her cute. Faye was even more shocked when fans started approaching him, forming a long line for his autograph. He was in awe, having never received this kind of treatment, even in his hometown. Seeing the two crowded with fans, Pearl hoped she would also be acknowledged as she had participated in the game yesterday. However, to her dismay, no one approached her, leaving her feeling sad and hungry. Overwhelmed by the fan meeting, Faye mentioned it had been 6 months since he last signed anything. Hearing this, Leshy playfully asked for his autograph, attributing it to experiencing human culture. Faye, taken aback, asked for her autograph pad, which Leshy didn't have. She then told Faye to sign the back of her ribbon, wanting her autograph to be special and unique. The flustered Faye then agreed to her request and signed her ribbon. However, as he finishes, Leshy then mentions that she would treasure his autograph, making Faye blush even more. Suddenly, Pearl came back and questioned the two, mentioning that they were standing awfully close to each other. A huge crowd then caught their attention and they realized it was because of Dax. She explained that they were filming a broadcast about Dax eating in real time, which thousands of people found entertaining. Rumor had it that the show alone brought in twice the money of an average apostle. Suddenly, Kelrich joined the conversation, attributing the show's success to Dax's popularity. She boasted about Dax but clarified that they were just business partners with no personal ties or feelings for him, but soon excused herself to take pictures of Dax eating. Out of the blue, Faye called out to Nell, who had been watching the trio for quite some time. She quickly approached Faye, commended him for his performance yesterday, and proposed to be an analyst for Faye's team, but was quickly refused. Not wanting to give up, she then suggested being Faye's personal maid, which Leshy promptly rejected. After being rejected twice, Nell decided to leave but was stopped by Faye's words. He asked her about her true intentions, doubting that she really wanted to be an analyst or a maid. Faye then invited her to an arcane court meeting to be held the next day. At the arcane court, they were welcomed by Balaguer, who mentioned their upcoming battle against the gods. He explained that their headquarters had selected 12 members from their branch to assist in today's game. Confused, Nell butted in, questioning her presence there. But Bale explained that Faye had told him she wanted to observe the game. Faye, however, didn't disclose anything further and told her that a teammate is supposed to stay close and cheer for their teammates. He asked her to trust in him and cheer for them and proceeded to enter the game. They found themselves in a vast desert, filled with nothing but sand. Soon, they were greeted by Dax and Kelrich, who were also participating in the game. Dax introduced them to the other team, led by Camilla, but suddenly, to everyone's surprise, Dax told Faye that this was his event and it wasn't his place to interfere. After his motivational speech, Dax called out to the gods to begin the game. The ground shook heavily and a pyramid emerged from beneath the sand. They were then greeted by an elemental Meep, who started explaining the rules of the game. Before beginning, the Meep assigned each participant a blue flower, explaining that their job was to take care of it or they'd be disqualified. Once the buds bloomed, the flowers would show 3 different colors: the special golden flower, the poison flower, and the rest as white sandflowers. The goal of the game was to offer the sunflower to the highest level of the pyramid. Hearing this, Faye calculated the distance to the pyramid to be 2 or 3 kilometers. However, the catch was the gods' team, which was on defense, would try to steal their flowers during the game. When the enemy team was revealed, everyone was flabbergasted to see it was made up of cute cats. The cat's job was to take the flowers from their hands, but if the players managed to steal the cat's flowers, the cats would be eliminated. However, if the cats stole their golden flower, the whole team would be eliminated. The Meep also revealed that the gods' team would possess 1 golden flower and 1 poison flower. But if a poison flower was stolen, the opposing team would be debuffed and stunned for 5 seconds, resulting in their immediate loss. Their job was to protect the sunflower and let the enemy steal the poison flower. Faye then asked if it was allowed for them to exchange information about their flowers, and the Meep confirmed it was. Faye then nudged open his buds to find he had a normal sandflower. However, Pearl soon revealed she had the golden flower, followed by Kelrich revealing that she had the poison flower. The Meep advised them to carefully decide who would carry which flower, continued with Faye explaining the 3 winning conditions and begins strategizing with the team. Essentially, this game was a race across the desert with enormous cats trying to impede their progress. Initially, Faye intended to leave the sunflower with Leshia, but they realized it would be too obvious. So Leshia suggested that her holding the poison flower would be a better idea. They then sought a candidate for the sunflower, asking for players with superhuman arises, shocked to learn that Kelrich was also one. Faye asked the Meep whether trading flowers was allowed and was informed that it was possible. However, the catch was that throughout the game, they must always be in possession of one flower. If they were not, they would be immediately disqualified. However, a player could sacrifice themselves by throwing their own flower to another teammate. Suddenly, Dax approached Faye, who was lost in thought, and told him that he must be the one to decide the roles. As it turned out, he had lost a bet, and this time he would focus solely on supporting his one and only rival. Camilla then provided Faye with the other players' data for him to analyze. He then instructed everyone to give him their flowers to shuffle and assign to each of them. After assigning everyone their flowers, Faye explained his strategy. He instructed everyone to keep their flowers a secret, aiming to confuse the gods' team and prevent them from targeting the sunflower. He asked everyone to trust in his strategy, thus beginning the game. The Meep then introduced the god they were facing, who descended from the sky and landed on top of the pyramid. Using telepathy, the god introduced himself as Mathma 2 and summoned a flower of his own. This led them to speculate that the flower in his hand would be opposing team's sunflower. As the game commenced, both Faye and Leshia revealed that they were the flower carriers. Thank you for watching this 7th episode's recap of this anime, and if you enjoyed this video and want more of it, go ahead and hit that like button down below and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Let's grow this community into a huge one and help us reach the goal of hitting 5,000 subscribers.